Buongiorno a tutti ragazzi, Luca here, professor of history and enthusiast of Italian culture, and today we take a look at one of the most famous Italians of this period, the 2024 US Open champion Jannik Sinner. Definitely not your stereotypical Italian. Yes, I know it's hard to believe, but for the first time in its history, Italy has the number one tennis player in the world, Jannik Sinner, a guy that at 23 years old has already won an Australian Open, just won the US Open 2024, and an heroic Davis Cup for Italy after 47 years. But let's be honest, if you look at him, his gestures, him giving interviews, if you look at him speaking perfect German, like it doesn't seem Italian, and if you read his name as last name, they're not even Italian. So why is that? Why is he Italian with so different characteristics compared to standard Italians? Let's dive in and find out. The answers to all these questions, as often happens, must be sought in history and geography, which is what this channel cares about. Jannik Sinner was born in a province in the far north of Italy known as South Tyrol. This German-speaking mountainous region, whose culture is connected with the Bavaria one, had historically always been part of the Austrian and later Austro-Hungarian Empire, but then, in 1914, World War I happened. During the First World War, the Alpine passes of South Tyrol were theaters of some of the cruelest battles between the Italian and the Austrian Imperial Army alongside the so-called Italian front. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives and many villages were bombed and suffered heavy casualties. Jannik Sinner village, the town where the guy grew up, Sesto Pusteria, was the village exactly in the middle of the front between the Italians and the Austrian, and suffered heavy bombing and casualties. Obviously, at the time, the inhabitants of this village fought for the Austrians against the Italians, and at the end of the hostilities, when the Italians won, more than 5% of the population of this small town lost their lives. So at the end of the hostilities, with the official Treaty of Versailles in early 1919, the war was over and the Austrian Empire actually dissolved for good, forever. So this Alpine region, straddling two countries and two cultures, the Latin one and the Germanic one, was thus assigned to the Kingdom of Italy. The Italian would eventually call it, changing its name, Alto Adige, which means upper valley of the river Adige, a river that historically had always divided the Italian Latin-speaking world from the Germanic one. And so, from one day to another, in 1919, people of South Tyrol, people who had never spoken a word of Italian in their lives, people who had Germanic first and last names, found themselves Italian by royal decree. And from then on, the relationships between the people of South Tyrol and the rest of Italy were, to put it mildly, quite difficult. During the period between the two world wars, by will of the Italian fascist dictator Benito Mussolini, the Italian government tried to erase the German-speaking culture of the people of South Tyrol and assimilate them into the Italian culture. German at school and in public offices was strictly forbidden, and people who did not adapt to these new rules were expelled and sent to Germany, with which there was an agreement to this effect, since Germany at the time also included Austria, the former state South Tyrol was part of. Since then, the situation has improved a lot, but at its own pace and not always peacefully. For example, in 1965, in Sinner's native village of Sesto Pusteria, some local terrorists protesting against the Italian annexation of South Tyrol in 1919 killed 2 officers in front of a local police station. And the Italian government, to give credit to it once, before and even more after this terrible episode, issued some serious laws that still guarantee an insane degree of autonomy to the people of South Tyrol. First of all, South Tyrol has a nearly complete degree of autonomy over its taxes that all remain within its beautiful mountains, and that favored a lot the economic development of a once poor area that now is by far the richest province of Italy, thanks to skiing, ski resorts and tourism in general coming from the rest of Italy and other areas of Europe. Moreover, bilingualism is very relevant throughout the entire provincial territory, where all writings are both in German and Italian. First German, then Italian. To work in this territory, you have to show that you know German perfectly, and German is also taught as first language in school. The results being that these people speak German as their first language, and most of them, when they speak Italian, you can clearly see that this language is not very familiar to them because they have an extremely strong German accent, and most of them, not all of them, but most of them, they make a lot of mistakes when speaking because they clearly never use Italian in their everyday life, unless they're like Sinner, who needed this for travel, for working and for training in other parts of the Italian peninsula.
Questo Tirolo, questo non Italia, this provincia South Tyrol, non Italia.
So, just to put things in perspective and to say it in a very educated way, people of South Tyrol can do whatever they want in their territory with an insane, unprecedented level of autonomy that, I have to say, very few other nations would have granted to this degree. In my opinion, for example, our cousins, the French, they would have never accepted this condition within their territories. But despite the economic and political relations between the people of this valley and the rest of the country being now very stable and peaceful, and also incredibly favorable for the reasons we've just discussed to the people of South Tyrol, a certain degree of distrust still remains on both sides. The South Tyrol people continue to perceive themselves as completely different from the standard traditional Italian culture, and on the other side, Italians who go there every year for skiing and for other kinds of tourism, they always feel like they're in their country, but they're not. They always feel like Italian is welcomed as a language, but not too much. And Jannik Sinner's personal story is very much, in many ways, intertwined with the one of its own native land. Born in a village where 98% of the people speak German as their own native language, and raised in a family that still owns a beautiful skiing resort very much appreciated by tourists, with the names of his father and mother being not classic Italian names such as Antonio or Franco or Super Mario, but Hans Peter and Sieglinde. He is clearly the son of another culture, and the reason why he is able to speak Italian so much better than the average person from South Tyrol is because, being a precocious tennis superstar, he was sent away from his family very early in his life, so he trained and he went to school in other areas of Italy where of course Italian is the first language. But again, when you look at him, when you look at his gestures, when he gives interview, when he celebrates, you can still feel that is again the son of a different culture, which is beautiful but interesting to notice.
Vinciamo questo slam, forza! Dai!
But now all these controversies between South Tyrol and the rest of the country, they don't matter anymore. We all love him, we are all in love with him, we want him to win for Italy, and the country is crazy for Jannik Sinner. But at the beginning, even this passion was not that straightforward, because when he wasn't famous yet, when he hadn't won anything yet, many critics said, I think he feels more Austrian than Italian, and many people criticized him for not participating in the first editions of the Davis Cup, which is the tournament in which, as a tennis player, you represent not yourself but your country. But then he won the Davis Cup for Italy after nearly 50 years, after 47 years as an absolute protagonist, so everyone jumped on the winner's bandwagon. We Italian, we are like this. We are like this. But I'm sure that at the first time he makes what we perceive as a mistake, for example, not going to the Olympics another time, because he didn't go to Paris, according to many people, for an injury that he could have overcome. The first time we feel he's betraying us, we will say that he's not Italian enough. This is the way we are as a country. This is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of videos, if you want to see more stuff related to famous Italian sportsmen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Ciao ciao ragazzi!